Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for sticking around, and it's an absolute pleasure and delight to be here. My name is Dr. Kelli Dunlap. I am the streaming manager for Take This, and I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist and game designer. And so I am so excited to be here today for this amazing event celebrating mental health in games. And I'm also delighted because I'm joined by Ash Paulsen. So Ash has volunteered his tribute to do Celeste live on stream, which braver person than I am. But Ash is a producer and content creator with the YouTube channel Game Explained and Geektainment TV. And he's been working in the games industry for over 10 years. And he's covered Celeste extensively, which is one of the reasons that we really wanted him as part of this stream. And the added bonus is that he's also covered mental health in games before too. So it just seemed like a perfect match. Thank you so much for being here, Ash.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you to my buddies at Safe in Our World, who they're kind of the ones who got us together and introduced you to me, and I work with them as well on mental health and gaming issues, and so I'm just super glad that they introduced me to you, so I can be here.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started here on Celeste Mountain. Where are we going? Where are we starting our adventure?
So we're going to start. We don't have enough time to play the whole game, fortunately and unfortunately, because that would be quite the marathon stream if we did. So we're going to start a little bit of the way into the game at Chapter 4, Golden Ridge. And I chose this chapter because, as you'll see quickly, the visuals in this stage are just gorgeous. It's very emblematic of how beautiful this game is and the whole aesthetic it has. But also because it culminates in one of probably my favorite sequence in the whole game, which I don't necessarily want to spoil for people who haven't seen it, but if you play Celeste, you know what I'm talking about. But of course, I'll talk about it when I get there. But yes, the end of this stage, the sequence between this stage and the next is really powerful stuff. And it really affected me as somebody who also suffers from mental health issues. And that's why I want to reach other people and talk about it and just get in front of as many people as I can.
Absolutely. And so for those who have played, you know where we're going. But if you're new to Celeste,
Yes.
A little backstory about what's been going on is that there is this main character. This is a little redheaded firecracker here named Madeline. And she is trying to summit Celeste Mountain. Along the way, she's being confronted by things that cause a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress. And so she's about, what we say, 2/3 up the mountain at this point?
I think it's closer to around halfway, isn't it? Maybe
Halfway?
it's a
Okay.
little more than halfway. Yeah.
Somewhere between half and
Yeah.
2/3. So we're really getting precise here. And she's ready to take on the next challenge. Her nemesis, named Badeline, is also causing some problems for her along the way. And we're going to see Badeline appear later on. But for right now, I'll let Ash take it away for a bit as he explains kind of what's going on in terms of this platformer, because Celeste is really special in the way that it requires you to be an excellent platformer, unless you want to put on assists, which there's no shame in whatsoever. And so I have to ask,
Right.
Ash, are we playing with any assists on right now?
Hopefully not. I've been doing a couple of practice runs, so I have finished the entire game without assists. So I don't intend on using any, but if I need to, I need to. As you said, no shame in having to do that. So it's a tough game.
It is. It is incredibly challenging, and that is one of the things that made it so entertaining, was that it had different difficulty levels for everybody who just wanted the story. You could put it on God mode and just kind of go through, to someone like Ash, who really wants that intense challenge. Is that the phrase for it?
Maybe. I both blame and thank Mega Man for my 2D platforming skills, because if I hadn't cut my teeth on Mega Man 3 as a kid, I don't know if I'd love and be as good at 2D platformers as I usually am.
Yeah, and this game is known for its difficulty in platforming. So yeah, take it away. Now that we are out of the cutscene, let's go.
Right. So basically what's going on here is that you can run and jump like any good platformer, and you can dash, do a midair dash. And when you do that, Madeline's hair turns blue, telling you that you cannot dash again until you hit some sort of ground, whether it's the actual ground or one of these bubbles here. And you'll kind of see what I mean as I keep going. Also, Madeline can climb onto walls, like you can latch onto walls and do that, and kind of like Ryu from the Ninja Gaiden NES games, if you've played those before. But basically, these bubbles kind of give you an extra dash, and that's what I'm doing here right now. They give you an extra dash in whichever the 8 cardinal directions you want. And these bouncy clouds, of course, are like any platforming bouncy clouds. They kind of give you extra height. Now, I don't need to
Yeah,
get the
and
strawberries. I don't know why I was doing that, but I just did it because it was there. I haven't gotten all the strawberries in the game. I probably never will. I was mainly here for the story and the characterization, for Celeste. But if you are super hardcore, more than I am, you can play the B side stages, the C side stages, and it gets really difficult.
speaking of, those spiky blue things are not your friend, which is
No,
a little unfortunate. But there's only one. Like, you're doing really good. I would have died by at least 20 times by this point.
I'm doing all right. Oh, of course I did. I hit
I'm
diagonal
so
right
sorry
into
I
the
jinxed
spikes.
you.
Well, what am I doing? I also have an issue with my Pro controller, which I think is kind of a well-known issue, where if you kind of hit the D-pad in one direction, it may not always go exactly in that direction. It's kind of an
Drift.
issue with the Switch Pro controller in general, but don't worry, you'll see me
Yeah.
die plenty of times regardless.
And the nice thing about this
It's
game
best
is it
guitar.
lets you know at the end how many times you died, just in case
It
you were
sure
really
does.
curious. Yeah. Thanks for that
And
feedback,
when I was doing
Celeste.
And when I was doing my practice runs, I noticed that it'll add to your death count too. When you quit back out, even if you've already beaten the stage, it'll add to your death count every run you have. It just reminds you, yeah, you
It
died this many
reminds you
times.
it reminds you of your persistence and how much you've
Oops.
overcome in the process of
Yes,
playing this game, like getting squished.
exactly. And these are kind of like Mario 3 type blocks. There were a lot of these blocks in World 7 of Mario 3, I think, and I completely screwed that up.
This is a hard
And there's
enough game
actually
to
another.
do when you're not talking. So you are like
Yes, it
God mode
is.
doing this game with no
It
assist
is really
and
tough.
trying to talk.
Now, speaking of Super Mario Brothers 3, this isn't required to beat the stage at all, but I wanted to show this off because it's a really cool Easter egg for those who've been gaming for a long time or those who have otherwise played Mario 3. There's this white block here, and if you played Mario 3 before, you know that if you duck for a few seconds in that game, Mario will fall behind the scenery, just like Madeline did here. And so what that allows us to do is actually climb up on the background scenery instead of the foreground scenery and get this hidden collectible heart here, and that's useful for something else. It unlocks extra content at the end of the game. I do not have all the hearts, but this is the one I did have, or one of the ones I had, and I wanted to show off that cool Mario 3 Easter egg.
So I just want to mention that in the pre-stream convo that we were having, we were talking about, Ash was saying, yeah, I won't go for the strawberries. I won't do anything flashy. I'm just going to get through it. And, 5 minutes in, we've already gotten the strawberry. We've already done like super ninja stuff on the back end. So, okay, that's fine. It's cool.
I guess I couldn't help myself. It's that, that the gaming streamer in me, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. But yeah, so as you saw, there were these little green pickups in the last. Oh, I think I screwed that up, didn't I? I sure did. Well, I can pretend to get the strawberry, and doesn't matter. But yeah, those green pickups in the last screen give you an extra midair dash, and that's what you saw me doing earlier. I don't know if there are any more in this stage. I don't think there are. Oh no!
You can do the thing. I believe in you.
Right? Nah, I got this. All right, it's got to guide this block through this little corridor. And there we go. I'm going to hitch a ride. Not going to worry about the strawberry. And there we go. Now things
It's a
start
good
getting a little
exercise in
crazier with
letting
the
it
wind.
go.
Yeah, perfectly stated. And that's also, one of the things I love about this game is that it is an exercise in kind of understanding your own mental health and trying to understand your own demons, and that it's not always about conquering your demons, but about reckoning with and accepting them, accepting the parts of yourself that you don't necessarily like. It isn't about, quelling it or necessarily erasing it, because all of us have things about ourselves we don't like. Oops, did that again.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I love about this game. I taught it in my games and psychology class this semester at the university where I teach. And that was one of the big takeaways that I had from this game that I talked about my game dev students with, was around, it's fine for something to be difficult, but there should be a reason that it's difficult. Like, it shouldn't be masochistic for
Exactly.
funsies. There should be something behind it the player's getting out of it or can refer to make that struggle seem worthwhile and not just painful.
For sure. And I mean, look, if you're the kind of, player who loves playing, games like Bloodborne and Dark Souls for the sake of the challenge and the challenge alone, nothing wrong with that. We should all play the games we enjoy. But I do love that there is a I mean, there's always a point to challenging games, I would say, but in this game, it's kind of an allegory for, Madeline is trying to summit this mountain, and you die over and over again. So in a way, through your struggles of dying over and over again, like I am right now as the player, it kind of lets you understand Madeline's plight a little more directly, I think, a little more viscerally. I
mean, it's probably an allegory for. I know that green or blue crystal is not being very kind to you right now, and
I know, right?
I'll talk to its manager. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. There we go.
But yeah, that's one of the things about games kind of in general, but definitely Celeste, this idea that, we all start at zero, and we all start,
right.
Learning how the controls work, learning the interfaces, the mechanics, the story, like what's the game feel? How does this even work? And then over time, our skill gets better and better and better. And it's a beautiful allegory for therapy. And I'm just saying that probably because I'm a psychologist. But the idea that you come into some place like therapy, or if you're seeking help, and you probably have a limited tool set. You might know that you should go towards shiny things and like up, down, left, and right, but you learn the tools along the way. And over time, they get more challenging. They maybe never go away. You just get better at navigating them.
Right. Right. That's so true. And one thing that's cool about Celeste is that, this is actually one of the hardest rooms in the game. Let's see here. So for that, I'll explain what I'm doing here, or at least in this stage. So you have to activate this block. Oops, not like that. You have to activate this block and then get ahead of it. Like, not like that either. All right. And then make this block fall, stay ahead of it, and get this little switch here. And now you can ride it to the end of the room. So you have to be pretty fast in this room. And this is where things start getting really intense, as you can see with the variable wind direction here. You have to kind of time your jumps, like I didn't do properly there.
I just stopped breathing just for a second.
There we go.
As if somehow my breathing would help you.
Right. One of the cool things about Celeste I was mentioning earlier was that there actually are optional super hardcore challenges that the player can go for if they want. But unlike a lot of games, the game tells you straight up, you can go for all the strawberries, but they're not going to do anything for you. They're not going to unlock something. Do it only if you want bragging rights. And it's true. Like they don't unlock anything. And I love that Celeste is straight up about that. Like it kind of separates its story and characters and the whole point of the journey from just pure gameplay, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing to consider is the accessibility that it has, that you can really change the difficulty of the game. You can put on invincibility mode where you actually can't fall off. You can actually slow
it off if you want.
Yeah, or speed it up.
Oh, maybe I can't do that from... Oh, maybe I can't do that from within a stage. Can I?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can try.
I can't remember. Photosensitive mode. I guess not. Maybe you have to do that from the main map screen. That's okay.
Or maybe at least the start of the level.
Or that could be too. But either way, yeah, this game has plenty of accessibility options, which I love. That's always important to me, whether I need them or not. I'm a firm believer in the fact that games should be for everybody. Games are for everybody. They aren't just for the super skilled. They aren't just, they're for everybody. And I think they should always be that way. And games, I think, have been doing a better job at that, at, kind of being for everybody. But, I also think there's still a ways to go, especially in the AAA scene.
Yeah, there's still a lot of arguments around, if something in terms of difficulty, well, it's hard. Well, hard for who? And when you label something as, easy and hard, it insinuates that there's some kind of universal standard for what is easy and what is difficult, where that's just patently not true. What may be easy for you may be really challenging for me, and vice versa. And so this idea of like a universal difficulty level, or that everybody needs assists in the same area, is, I think it's more of a relic of where games came from. But it's really great that games like Celeste are, showing that, okay, this isn't impossible. You can absolutely do this. And then you have a huge success on top of it because more people can play your game. And isn't that what you want?
Exactly. I mean, why limit your audience? It, not only are less people having fun with your game, but it also hurts your bottom line. Like you want to appeal to as many players of as many different skill levels or abilities as possible. And Celeste does that so well. And what's even more beautiful about it, as we were saying, is the fact that it ties into the the game's whole theme, the game's whole journey, her story. And, you know, it's like as you, the player, struggles, you also see Madeline struggling, but you overcome together.
You get hit in the face with a snowball.
Yeah, that
happens
too.
to all of us.
I could make it.
And one of the beautiful things about when you're designing a game, I mean, a cool little factoid is that Celeste actually started as a game jam game. So this amazingly beautiful, like globally renowned game started out as something that was made in like 48 hours. Obviously not all of this, but like the concept of it, the idea, a little bit of the story, you know, the mechanics, the bones of it were created super, super quick.
I don't think I knew it was that quick. I knew it was a game jam game, but I guess I didn't put the two together, that it was put together that quickly, at least for the first showing. That's so cool, though, because I mean, it's become such an iconic game.
Yeah, absolutely. So regardless if I got my times wrong, it was a game jam game. It was a game jam game, which is really cool.
Right.
Because it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it's proof that you don't have to have a huge, enormous budget to do well by mental health. You know, one of my favorite games ever is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, which is this amazing game. Yeah, about, you know, dealing with really you know, hard issues around, you know, depression, psychosis, mental illness in general. And, you know, they had the entire team at Ninja Theory. They were able to bring in consultants. They were able to bring in psychologists. And they had all these resources at their disposal. And it's an amazing game. And then it's also really beautiful to see something like Celeste, where they didn't necessarily have that plentifulness of resources, but they still made something really beautiful, really amazing, and obviously really touching around mental health because it just won an award. So cool stuff.
Which it absolutely deserves. It deserves all the awards. I just have so much love and respect for this game and what it does. And it, as I said, you know, as someone who personally struggled with mental health issues, there were a lot of things in this game that I related to. And it really hit me on a pretty profound level, to the point where my wife has started playing it. We're going to go through it together at some point, but it's definitely the kind of game you got to get used to when you're not ready, you know, when you're not necessarily expecting the level of challenge it kind of offers.
Also importantly, as I have learned by talking with Ash, you should not do it on a computer. In fact, you should do it on a console.
Yes, I'm playing on the Switch right now, and yeah, because you were telling me that you were, you know, that you used assists and stuff, which is of course cool, whatever. But then you were saying, well, you know, I also played on a keyboard, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know if I could even beat Celeste with assists on a keyboard. Like, that's just hats off to you for being able to do that at all, because I don't think I could.
So to clarify, it was for a class I was teaching, and so I put all the assists on just to get through.
Nice.
Because I had class. You'd like to think that after as much, you know, graduate school as one has been through, you would maybe at some point do your homework before the minute it's due. It's no different when you're a professor, at least for me. Like, I have to teach today. Oh,
nice.
I should probably play this game. It can't be that hot. Oh,
almost.
Oh, I think it was so close. So close.
One of the best things about this game in terms of design is the fact that it's not punitive. It's difficult. It's difficult as hell, and it's punishing, but it's not punitive in the sense that you have to like start over from the beginning of the stage. You have infinite lives. You know, when you die, you respawn immediately. So it kind of has that one more try mentality where you just don't want to stop because it gets you back into the action so fast.
Oh, pixels, man, pixels.
I know, right?
It also, again, as a game dev nerd, it makes me wonder, like, I wonder if this idea of like saving so frequently, like, yes, it's definitely a benefit to the player. I'm going to stop now because this is important.
Yeah. So this is one of Madeline's friends who she has previously met in an earlier portion of the mountain, named Theo, and they become at first kind of uncomfortable friends. They're not quite sure if they trust each other, or at least Madeline isn't quite sure if he trusts him. But later on, they become much better friends, and this is one of the defining scenes between them and in the whole game, in my opinion. And this is kind of what I was hinting at earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, when you think about Celeste, and if someone mentions mental health, this is probably the scene they're talking about. And I'm so glad we're going through it and highlighting it. There are so many amazing components around this story and how it integrates into the gameplay. Like, they're just perfectly interwoven together. It's not like there's a story slapped on top of a platformer. And so
Right.
definitely like this is an amazing, amazing part. So I'm going to be quiet, but there's lots of parts like this.
Yeah, this is pretty fantastic, and you'll see another character that you haven't seen yet show up pretty soon. And see, then
Also, I
talking
love the
about
art.
Oshiro, yeah, the art's so good, right?
Like it and anime.
I love Madeline's attitude too.
She just does not have time for that. She really doesn't.
No, and she's so like I love how the game isn't afraid to show her as being a little bit too abrasive. Like she isn't always nice to people, and that kind of goes into the whole. Just because she's the protagonist, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's always the good guy. And she's got her own demons, as we all do, and that those demons sometimes cause us to lash out in ways we shouldn't. And she's just as vulnerable to that as anybody else.
And also that having a
Theo
mental
loves
illness doesn't
selfies.
necessarily. He does. He does love his selfies. Oh,
Yeah,
there we go. There's our
there
friend
we go. So that's
battling.
Madeline sitting on the gondola there, and that she's kind of like the manifestation of Madeline's inner demons and the things she's trying to work through. And they meet each other many times on the journey throughout Celeste Mountain. And so, of course, when Madeline appears, the gondola starts shaking and possibly going to fall. It starts freaking out.
I mean, for the record, I would freak out if I was on a gondola and it stalled and was shaking. So I feel like
Me
it's
too. I
very
mean, Theo
valid
is like fine.
anxiety.
He's like, well, that's not good. But I'd be like, I'd be freaking out.
Yep.
And I don't blame her. I'd be freak. Yeah.
No,
So
Theo,
yeah,
we're
as you
not
were saying,
cool.
no, we're not cool at all. And as you were saying, Kelly, this is a sequence that many people talk about when they talk about Celeste, because it is, as Theo just said, you're having a panic attack. And the first time that I got to this scene and I was playing the game for the first time, I had to like stop for a bit. I had to like pause, put the controller down, and take a breather, because anybody who's experienced a panic attack, myself included, you know how bad it is. And the way the audio visuals, the way this game captures exactly how brutal and how horrifically awful panic attacks are, it affected me. And I was like, wow, I, it's just when you've gone through it, and I've never seen a game deal with something like this so honestly and so brutally. And that's one of the things I love about it.
I think when he called out, "You're having a panic attack," I stopped as well. But I think for me it was more of, "Oh my God, he actually named it."
Yeah.
It's not, "Oh, you're
Which
stressed," or "You're worrying too much." Like,
exactly. Get over it. Get over it. There's nothing to be worried about. It's
yeah,
like that.
like
If you've ever had a panic attack, or if you suffer from anxiety, it's not about you whether you should or should not be panicking, or whether you should or should not be sad. You are, and you can't control it, and you have to deal with it. And that's why I love, as you just said, he called it a panic attack, and called it for what it is. And I love that. And I also love this. I had never even thought about
yeah.
the technique of breathing, regulating your breathing to try to visualize a feather and keeping that feather aloft. Like, what a cool idea.
Yeah, there's a couple, therapeutic techniques that, I'll use with clients in session that all revolve around the breath and like regulating your breathing. But seeing it taken and put into a format that has as wide a reach as a video game does, especially compared to therapy, and much less a
Right.
video game as popular as Celeste. I can only hope that somewhere someone was like, "Oh my gosh, wait a minute. Maybe that's something that I can do too." And just, clinical disclaimer, breathing exercises like that don't work for everybody. And for some people,
Sure.
they can actually make anxiety feel worse by paying attention to it. So it's definitely not a one size fit all. It's not like a magic wand. And I love that selfie.
It's such a
But
good
just
selfie.
even
Theo and his selfies.
the attempt, the forethought to, because they could have done that. He could have said breathe, and there could have been no mechanical component to it. And for those who haven't played, like keeping the feather in that box, that's up to the player. You have to be able to lift and lower the feather in time with the rhythm of the breath. And so it's this beautiful combination of the physiological, the player themselves physiologically responding to the mechanic. They're using their thumbs, but I would love to run a study to see if people's breath as they play that point starts to match up with the rhythm of the feather anyway. So anybody out there needing a dissertation, I would recommend that. Um,
Nice.
But yeah, like
So,
not only one,
do you,
like one, oh, go ahead. I could talk all day.
do
Go,
you-
go.
that's okay. Do you have any particular preference in terms of what stage to play next? I have a file with the entire game unlocked, but I don't want to spoil the end of it. So I'm thinking maybe the hotel might be a good one, just to show kind of what some of the other people on the mountain, the demons they deal with, and how Madeline has to kind of reckon with that. But
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, no, if we have the time to do that, and if we don't want to spoil the ending, then I think that's where we
Yeah.
should go. Either the very beginning where she splits,
Hmm.
or the Shira Hotel, because that one's it's a very Oshiro's very different.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's up
All
to
right. Well, then
you.
maybe that might be without context. It might be a little confusing. So maybe you just do the beginning. You think?
Sure, yeah, because I think that's pretty cool too.
All right. Then yeah, we'll go back to the beginning to give viewers who have not played Celeste, who just watched this mid game stage, you'll have the context for who Madeline is and what she's doing, what she's trying to do, and kind of what happens to her at the beginning here. And I really I've said it so many times. I really cannot recommend this game enough. It's such a beautiful work of art, and again, especially if you suffer from mental health issues or if you know someone who does, this can be a very therapeutic game. Like, obviously, I'm not speaking as anybody clinically trained. I'm just speaking as a game enthusiast and content creator. But for me, it has been immensely helpful.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about doing mental health representation in games in a way like this, is that no one's saying this is treatment. No one's saying that, you can do this instead of therapy. Like, that's definitely not the intent. But what's important to me as a clinician and an advocate and an educator is that this game is going to reach far more people than I ever could. This is going to reach far more people than I could help as a therapist, as a teacher, or yeah, as like an educator, anything like that. And so just the fact that they're willing to name things as they are, that they're willing to go into that story. And it's not cliche. It's not, again, not just a narrative plopped on top of a platformer for the sake of being indie or whatever. It's
Yeah.
very obvious that this is important to them. And I will say one of my favorite things is that the laughter follows you across the bridge. And for someone with
Oh,
anxiety,
does
the
it?
idea that someone laughing at you continues to follow you across the bridge, that
I
was the
don't think I
very first
ever
thing I
noticed that.
noticed.
That's so cool. I love that. That's so
It's
neat. There's so many cool little details in this game.
Yeah. And like just small things like that really, really emphasize where, again, if it's not something that you regularly think about, likely you didn't even notice it. And that's okay. And it
Right.
might even be unintentional. Like, I'm not saying that when they made this game, they sat down and were like, we're going to have her laugh. We're going to have the laugh follow the person, because people with
Uh-huh.
anxiety often think that others are laughing at them and that haunts them. It could just be just what it is. But I choose to interpret it as a beautiful representation of what it's like to be so worried about what other people think about you that sometimes it's paralyzing, and sometimes it feels
Yeah.
like their laughter literally follows you home.
That's a great point. I had never I'm learning things about this game that I had never even. I've played it so much, and I still didn't even think about that. I love that.
Hey, I feel like it's only fair because I didn't know about that secret white block that you sat on at the beginning.
Oh,
So
you
I didn't even know
didn't?
that
Okay,
heart was
nice.
there. No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Yeah, I found that by
So we're even
accident.
now.
Yeah, I found that by accident the first time I played the game. I guess because 2D platformers are kind of one of my favorite genres in general. And so
Mhm.
I grew up playing Mega Man, the original Mega Man games. That's kind of why I play platformers so much now. It kind of nurtured a love of 2D platformers in me early on. But, if you play that many platformers, you kind of know to probe the boundaries of each screen and, and look around and see if you can find any hidden stuff. And I just happened to find that hidden area, and I saw that white block, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this a Mario 3 reference? Let me try ducking. And sure enough, it was. And that's another thing that's cool about this game is, like, even if you want to approach it purely from the perspective of just having a good time with the great game, it is that. It's a great game made by people who know games, love games, and want to, make their own great game. And it's just, it succeeds on so many levels. It's not just, it's not like it's not the kind of highfalutin experience where it's trying to teach you something. It's not about forcing a message down your throat. If you're open to it and you want that out of it, it has that in spades. But it doesn't force it on you, and it's still a great game removed from all that.
I just love that you said highfalutin. I just, it made my day. Earlier today, I got to use
That's
the word petard, so we're doing good.
nice. I got to use the word solipsistic the other day, and I was very happy about it. My wife is looking at me right
Wow.
now. She's rolling her eyes. She's like, "Oh, here we go."
I'm proud of you. And let me celebrate that victory because that sounds like it was important for you. I actually
Well,
don't
I
even know what
just
that word
I
means. So that is solid.
very egocentric.
I feel like I should know that word
Yeah.
then, given what I do.
No, that's my writing background and journalism degree speaking, I guess. I've always kind of been
Okay,
the
okay.
writer. I was a copy editor for a publishing company called Udon Entertainment. I was their senior editor for like 6 or 7 years or something. And so I've done a lot of copy editing and such. Oops.
Yeah, that's one thing I've learned. You can never take the copy editor or any editor out of anyone ever. They're always there. They're always watching, and they're
Unfortunately,
always
that is
catching
true.
every mistake. Every mistake you
Yeah, for
ever
better
make,
and
they're right
worse, I
there.
am one of those people. Yeah. I'm one of those people. I don't do it to people unless they ask, like they say, "Hey, if I'm wrong, correct me." I wouldn't do that without being asked. But I'm one of those people where billboards and video games and books, I see everything. I see every single mistake. And the sad truth is, you get away with a lot in video games because a lot of people just don't care if the text is perfect, and that's just, it is what it is, I guess. But this is pretty cool. So that monument was dedicated to those who perished on the climb. And this next sequence is kind of what really made me realize I was playing something truly special. By the way, it's a shame that we can't hear Lena Raine's gorgeous soundtrack right now. We couldn't get the audio going through my feed, unfortunately. But the music is such a huge part of the Celeste experience, like it is any video game. I'm a huge video game music enthusiast, and so as beautiful as these visuals are, if you haven't played the game, try to imagine this with a really perfectly uh, considered soundtrack. It's such a good soundtrack in this game.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of things you can't unsee, thanks to my mental health and design background, I see sad design everywhere. So I don't see the words so much as how things are designed. So just to ruin everybody's day, the next time you see a door that you have to push or pull, I want you to think about whether or not the door was made correctly, because vertical
Nice.
has the affordance of pulling and horizontal has the affordance of pushing. And so if you walk into a door and just hit it, because you opened it the wrong way, it's probably the door's fault because it wasn't designed correctly with the human in mind. So just throwing that out
I
there.
love it. I love it. So this, I remember
And
the
you'll
first
never
time I played
unsee it.
Celeste was late at night, and I had the lights off and everything, and I got to this part, and I was like, okay, this is kind of creeping me out in a good way. I love this. And then, of course, you can continue through this stage, and it's just such an interesting game.
Yeah, especially the mechanic it introduces here with the goo. I don't think we're at the goo
Yeah.
yet,
So
but it's
it's like
coming.
space goo or something. It's like,
Space goo.
yeah, that's right. It has to activate first, doesn't it? That's right. Let's see.
Yeah, I got ahead of
So
myself. I'm
for right
sorry.
now, yeah, right now I can walk on this weird matter or whatever it is, but soon that will not be the case. Oh wait, I can't go here yet, can I? I have to go find the trigger for the next part of the story. Let's see. Is it at the very bottom? Might be. I think it probably is. That's
So the
not it.
other, just to so the audience in the chat knows, Ash was practicing that, really challenging sequence out in the clouds. This is all just from memory from the last time you played it. So,
Yeah, this is. I did not
yeah.
practice this one at all. Oops. Yeah, this
Oh,
stage, I
ouch.
for some reason I thought I'd only have time for that one stage, but I guess I practiced it enough that I was able to do it more quickly than I expected. So that's always nice. And of course, I talked to
Well,
you, Kelly,
speaking of,
beforehand about how I had hoped I wouldn't fall victim to the stream curse, because everyone who streams, they know about the streaming curse. The first time, here, I'll pause my story.
here
So
we
here's
go.
where she first meets Madeline,
My reflection.
right?
It's
And now
upsetting.
this is what you're talking about. It is.
Yes,
Well, and,
the
and we
space
all
goo.
have that. I mean, even those of us who would like to say we don't, we all have a side of ourselves we don't like, and we have to reckon with. And the way this game plays with that idea is it doesn't go where you think it will. Like, I found myself thinking when I was playing this game, every time I thought that Madeline had her epiphany and she had found her purpose and she had conquered her demons, I was wrong, because it goes in a way that you don't necessarily expect, or at least I didn't expect. And one of the things I love about that is that Madeline gets beaten down over and over and over and over again. She has several epiphanies. She thinks she's figured it out several times, and every time she thinks that, she gets smacked down even harder. And what I love about that is that it's exactly what mental health or what mental illness is like. Mental illness is not a one and done thing. You don't just conquer depression and then you're done, and then it's in the rearview mirror and that's it. It's a lifelong struggle. And anybody who has that, or anxiety, or any mental illness, knows it is a lifelong struggle. It's not something that you just put behind you forever. And that's kind of what I got out of this myself, is that it's not, she didn't just have one thing to do to figure it out and beat the game. She gets smacked down over and over again. And it's not until she learns to reckon with herself that she starts making headway. And I just think that's such a great message.
Yeah, the idea that, life is a journey, not to be super cheesy and cliche, but it's the same thing with any kind of mental health or mental illness, is that, there are some people who are very lucky. They can go through a single episode of something and never experience it again. Like, that is definitely possible. But it's also possible that, so it's possible for, if someone's, say they're having a really hard time at work and their boss is stressing them out so much that they feel like they need to go see a therapist, and maybe there's, a diagnosis. And then once the stressor is gone, the symptoms abate and they never have a problem again. So it is possible. All things are possible. But the average course, I say what I would expect mostly, as a clinician, what I see most often are people who are finding ways to manage so that whatever they're dealing with becomes a part of their life, but not something that rules it anymore. So yeah, there's no magic your depression is gone button, because if there was, I would totally have it, and be a very, very famous psychologist. But I'm sorry, I'm reading the dialogue, so I'm getting distracted.
No, you're fine. And just look at the creepy, the visuals. They're so, I don't know, the visual effects here make her experience with Madeline feel so raw, I guess. Dark is just putting it. I can't want to say dark, because it's a dark game, but it's more than that. It's so honest and so raw, I guess, as I just said.
Are you saying that a pile of skeleton bones in front of you is not inherently comforting?
Right, obviously. No big deal. but that says something when the pile of skeletons is the less scary thing that you're looking at, right? That says a lot.
Yeah, the red beady eyes really cut right through you.
Right. And so even there, Madeline just said, darling, you're many things, but you're not a mountain climber. How many times have those of us who, have some sort of mental health issue, we have our voices telling us what we are and what we're not, and what we can and what we can't do. And it's just I can relate to her experience so well. And that's just one of the many reasons I love this game so much.
Actually, there's a question for you in the chat, and it says, Ash, do you think Breath of the Wild 2 might have time travel features, as the music was reversed in the teaser? Wow, this feels like a deep cut.
Wow. Well, thank you for the question. I'm guessing maybe you're a Game Explained fan, so thank you for that. And thank you for following the channel. Do I think they're I hadn't really thought about it. It's been a while since I've seen the Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. I guess, when you put it like that, I guess it's possible. I hadn't previously considered time travel as a potential element in Breath of the Wild 2, but when you pose the question to me like that, you know what? That's possible, I guess. Yeah. So thank you for making me think about that. Yeah.
Exclusive.
I think I'd heard something about that theory, but I hadn't really paid too much attention to it yet, just because I haven't really had time to look into it. But I know I'm looking forward to the game itself. That's for sure. As we all are.
Absolutely. Oops. So this is one of my favorite design parts of this game, and how it just integrates the actual mechanic of the game with the mental health component, is that Madeline isn't just following Madeline. She's actually tracing the exact path the exact pathing that Madeline is taking. And so whatever you do, she's going to follow the exact place that you go, like down to the pixel. And that to me just resonates so strongly. One is as you know, game design, like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. That's a really interesting use of that. And then when you add on that layer of mental health of, oh wait, all your anxiety and depression is literally following you, doing everything that you do, just copying you like a really annoying little brother, you know, and then occasionally murdering you. It's great.
Yeah, no big deal. Occasionally murdering you, no big deal. But yeah, no, that's, you know, that's such a good way to put it. And it reminds me so much from a purely game design standpoint. It reminds me so much of the what are they called? Cosmic Mario clones from Super Mario Galaxy 2, from those challenge stages where like a shadow Mario will follow you and do everything you do, making it that much more difficult. Oh man. Okay, there we go. Oh, so yeah, as I was saying earlier, I'm sure any Game Explained fans in the chat who have seen me stream before will appreciate this story. But I was still talking to you, Kelly, before we started about how I was worried about the streaming curse, and I was like, oh man, you know, I've been practicing. It should be no problem for me to do this stage, but I hope I don't screw up on stream. And so I streamed my favorite game of all time for Game Explained a few years back, Chrono Trigger, favorite game of all time. I played it more times than I can even count. Oh yeah, and so I have never had even like an iota of a problem with the final boss of that game ever in my life. But of course the stream curse hits and I get to the final boss on stream and I get one-shotted. My whole party gets wiped out in the first attack. And I'm like, I've never had that happen before, but it's the stream curse, you know? So that's just what you have to deal with when you stream.
That's what you have to deal with life. I've had no problems up to this point. I'm doing fine. Oh wait.
Good point.
Let's let 2020 happen, and we'll see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, murder hornets, coronavirus, no big deal. It's great.
No big. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Oh no.
Yep. Oh no. Oh, Doom. Doom is following. There you go. That's also what anxiety feels like. Like Doom is following you. It's 1 second behind you.
All right. God, I can barely hear the music on my own speakers. Of course, I had to turn it down for the stream, but I really can't say it enough. Lena Raine's soundtrack for this game, it has to be experienced in the game to be fully appreciated. I mean, you can listen to the vinyl, you can listen to a digital soundtrack. It's great to listen to by itself, obviously, but you got to experience it in the game to really, really know just how special a soundtrack it is.
It really just, I mean, I'm sure this goes for music in all games, all design. Oh, geez. Oh,
yeah.
I
know.
So there was a moment, there was hope, and then it was gone. But yeah, the music just completely amplifies the effect. I know one thing I always like to teach my students about is, you know, Left 4 Dead, when you have the witch music.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Like, that's a beautiful example of conditioning, of classical conditioning. Look at that. You might as well be Pavlov and his dog. But that's like
yeah. Excuse me. So this whole area, or this whole level, has such a cool dreamlike quality to it, where everything kind of seems somewhat normal, except something's off too, and I love that. Like, she's talking on a payphone, that's kind of normal, but then the conversation she's having clearly is something that's a little off about it, and I just love that kind of atmospheric storytelling in this game. The dialogue is great. Earlier, I don't know if any of the audience noticed, but one of the cool things this game does is sometimes, like when Madeline was talking at the beginning of this act, she kind of leaned outside of her portrait, and it was so cool. She kind of broke the boundaries of her little portrait, and that happens later on in the game as well in different ways. And I always thought that was really cool.
Absolutely.
And here's Madeline again. Oh, there we go. Cool.
Yeah. Madeline, leave me alone.
And then this happens, which is just, okay, sure.
Because why not? You know?
Why not?
All right, so
But
we have
yeah,
just been eaten by a monster. That's good.
right. Yeah, no big deal. All in a day's work on Celeste Mountain.
Yep, yep. And it's perfect because we are almost out of time for our playthrough.
All
And
right.
it looks like we're going to get to end it with Theo. And that makes me so happy because that's like some nice little
Same.
closure ribbon. It's perfect.
I love this guy. He's probably after Madeline herself. He's my favorite in the game.
The selfies, it took me a while.
Yep.
I'm not going to lie. It took me a little while to warm up to him, because he's got
Uh-huh.
some of that, we might call it like toxic positivity of everything's fine. There's nothing to
Yeah,
be
just a
worried
little
about.
bit.
There's nothing to be sad about.
Yeah.
Just, just
Yeah.
try a little harder. Have you tried not
Well, and I
being
think most
worried
of us,
before?
well, and I think
Yeah,
most of us, if we were hiking alone on a mountain, we might be a little guarded, a little, when we meet a stranger, just kind of who wants to take a selfie with us, like, it's just, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. But then he turns out he's a really great guy.
really, really great guy. Such good intentions. And of course, as we saw from the gondola scene, he's got some insight and definitely has loads of empathy. And, he's a good one. I'll keep him for now.
If we all had a
We'll
little
see what
bit more
happens in
Theo in us, I
Celeste
think
2.
would all be better off. A little more empathy, I think, would all be better off.
Yeah, yeah. Aw,
What a great way to end this. I
there's the
love it.
perfect. It's like we practiced it.
Yeah.
We're
Totally,
going to say that
totally
was
timed
intentional.
perfectly. I knew exactly what I was doing.
Absolutely. I knew faith with you every step of the way. Not a moment's doubt.
Yes.
That's what all
Well,
the
I
deaths
just
were
want to
about.
thank you. I know exactly. Yeah, I was timing the desk so that
Same.
we'd end up right here at 6:45 p.m. But no,
Same.
before we are done, I just want to thank you again for joining me for this. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and talking to you, and I want to thank Take This in general for inviting me to be a part of this. I want to reach as many people as possible with mental health in games, and so thank you so much for having me involved. It really does mean a lot.
Absolutely. Same. Thank you so much for doing this for us. As I mentioned in before we went live, that I was going to be the other person volunteer to do this, and I'm like, no, like the actual playthrough part. So thank you so much for saving me, and and
No problem.
for all that you do, as well. This has been fantastic and wonderful, and it has been an absolute delight. And so I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. But for those in
You
the
as well.
chat, stay tuned. We've got a couple more minutes to kind of wrap up things, put a nice little, as I said, a closure bow on it. And so I'm going to toss it back over to Eve and Dr. B.